Hi everyone. In this video, we'll be covering a very important aspect related to our field, which is project management. See, management is required at all levels and in all professions. An unmanaged project, however nicely designed it may be, is bound to fail and dissatisfy the end users, which is our clients. For the purpose of this video, I have divided the subject in 4 parts, starting with my experience when I started practicing, and then at what moment I realized there was a problem as far as management goes, moving on to the role of college on this subject, and last but not the least, solutions to deal with the problems. So if you feel you lack project management skills, watch this video till the end. So when I started working on my first project, it wasn't just a consultancy project. The client was keen on giving the project to one person who could manage both design and execution. Needless to say, getting your first project is always special, and I started with full energy and confidence. But soon, various kinds of problems started to erupt. And so to mention, I will be reflecting upon problems which might come off as petty to few people, but believe me, as a newbie, it can take most part of your day, especially when dealing with a design and build project. Starting from dealing with subcontractors' unethical behavior, we all know it happens, to delays in arranging the right material at the right time, managing material inventory at site, finding material stacked in a disorderly manner, site being in a shabby state, quality checks. It sounds obvious, right? But even the experts falter here. To delays in addressing bills of various vendors and contractors, and most importantly, maintaining timeline of a project. And in the end, with all this, keeping your clients updated about not so smooth running of projects. The list is quite long. How frustrating and chaotic things become, probably those who've experienced this can relate to it. Now comes the part where I realized that more than 80% of my time was dedicated to solving problems, which were not even design related. These day-to-day problems were keeping me busy the whole day, and sometimes at the end of the day I used to think, what exactly did I do today? What I'm trying to say is that even after working for 12 hours in a day, I was practically involved in very small issues which are inevitable and are part of any project, be it big or small. But the leak in my system was that I was the only person responsible to take the smallest of decisions. So everything had to come to me, and my presence was required everywhere. Now, if you're thinking, what does college have to do with all these problems? Doesn't this happen with everyone and we learn on our own once we are in the situation? The answer is yes. We do learn things on our own. But then so should a child who wants to learn swimming, right? He should drown first, and if he's able to survive, then perhaps analyze why he drowned. Or a pilot, till the time he doesn't crash, he shouldn't be taught how to fly safely. The point is that we don't learn in college the problems associated with implementation. We don't learn in college the problems associated with implementation. I don't think it's necessary to do masters in project management to learn the basics. The basics should be part of the curriculum, and as I say, the program should also be focused on project management, not just for big projects but for small ones too. Which brings me to 3 steps, and I can take an entire day to talk about the importance of these 3 steps. But for now, we'll address it briefly. They're on your screen. I call them my LSD, in which L stands for look out for the leaks. It's not as simple as it sounds. If you don't identify the problems in your system, the processes which are affecting your efficiency, how do you think you can solve them? Whether it is not being able to keep yourself updated with the latest trends and designs, or having problems in implementation or work at site, to maintaining relations with vendors, manufacturers, contractors. All these things combined make up our ecosphere within which we function, and to identify where we lack is extremely important to level up our project management skills. So look out for the leaks in the system. Next is standardize. Develop SOPs for every task. Now, as soon as you've identified the problems, the next step is to develop SOPs for every problem or task. By SOP, we mean standard operating procedure. I realized that the only way to keep myself out of repetitive tasks was to establish standard operating systems for as many jobs possible that required my attention on a daily basis. Let me give you an example. In one of the problems I mentioned before, I said how for every small purchase required to be made at site, my involvement was necessary. I thought, why not make list of all the common items which are usually required on day-to-day basis or weekly, and create charts which have all the details of those materials with clearly mentioned specs. So on your screen is an example of a list of wooden materials which in my interior projects are quite frequently required, and I decided to standardize this list. Now, as you see on this chart, how different categories and various specs in the categories are mentioned clearly for any layman to understand as well. From a front desk person having no knowledge of materials to a draftsman or even an intern who, even if he or she hasn't communicated with my wooden vendor ever, can understand most of the items and order from that list. Not just order, but also reconfirm the costs of various items and mark changes if any so as to bring into my notice. Now this process was implemented for all other categories: electrical, plumbing, sanitary, lighting, glass, hardware, so on and so forth. There are always certain things in our operations which are repetitive. The categories keep on expanding, and whenever there is a new material we get to know of, we try integrating it in this system. There is nothing great about this process, but it's quite evident what I achieved by doing this. The daily calls of ordering something or the other, receiving calls in middle of other important tasks, now could be diverted to someone else as the process had been standardized. This was all about creating SOPs for the procurement process. The fun is that SOPs can be applied to each and every possible system which has the ability to become organized. Right from quality checks at site, billing, which again is an integral part of our practice, SOPs for the same can be developed and put into order. Moving on to the third important aspect of project management, which is delegate. Learn the power of delegation. Now the interesting thing about this word delegate is that a lot of people have heard this word and know about it, but don't practice it. The number one way, or I should say rather the only way to take out time for doing things you always wanted to do or wish to do is by setting up a system wherein there is someone who's trained enough to handle a task, so that even if you're busy meeting with some new business prospect, you have someone taking care of the dailies. See, the SOPs I spoke about in step 2 are being created so that as and when possible, the right person to delegate that process can be hired or trained. I understand our profession is more about creativity, and I'm not asking you to delegate design. That can always be something you are in charge of completely. But there is always a way to delegate operations. Remember when I said above that repetitive tasks kept me busy 80% of the day? Without a doubt, by learning the importance of delegation, I've brought that figure down to 30%. And I will bring it down further. Now, many of you must be thinking that the process of delegation is only valid for people who are functioning with strong capital, who can afford to hire a lot of people at the start of their careers. You're right, it is definitely easier for people who are capital rich, but the point I'm trying to make is that even if it's one person, just one person you hired, through strategic delegation and micromanaging till a certain extent, then training them to be responsible enough to make decisions without being spoon-fed is what a lot of small and medium scale firms lack. I truly believe it's a subject which should have been taught by experienced professionals in college who could share their examples for us all to learn. So summarizing the power of delegation in 6 simple steps, they're on the screen right now. Even if it is one person, start departmentalizing. Micromanage for a while, but not forever. You're not the only one who can perform the task in the best possible way. Training and not spoon feeding should begin from day one. Trust people, and most importantly, repeat all of the above with the next person. These 3 points are basic, but yet have given me tremendous benefits in organizing myself. If we all understand the relevance of these points, they all lead to expanding our horizon beyond design, which in turn leads to the start of building of our project management skills. At least at the start of our careers, the complex exercises, methodologies, frameworks can be learned as we move ahead with experience. With this being said, I'll wrap up today's video. You may like to go through the video again and note down points you find valid. In my next video, I'll be concluding the series of 5 things the college does not teach you. If you haven't watched the part 1 of this video, I would recommend you all checking that out too. The link will be in the description. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel ADS Talks, you can do that too. Thanks for watching. Have a great weekend.